Okay, welcome to our Saturday Bucky call, our weekend Bucky call. It's only Saturday in the Western Hemisphere where the two of us happen to be right now. Ann is not going to be on the call this evening, and Joe says he has a headache, so I'm not sure he's going to make it. And Manu may or may not show up. Lee is detained right now. She's online here, but she's not visible, and she'll be joining us in a minute. Right now, it's Richard and I. And while our topic is a fuller explanation over here, and we have a certain page that we could read from, uh, Richard has something about golden ratio, an article that he found. So we're going to start right there, but we're also going to do our little introduction on the call. Richard, I'm going to start out because you're going to go over and just lead us into the article discussion if you want to. So I'm feeling, I was up the mountain today. I attended somebody else's barbecue. I got to see the mountains. We can drive for literally 25 minutes and we're in the high Uintas here out of Salt Lake City. It's a beautiful thing. I'm sure Alberta is close. I
Hmm.
don't know how far were you from mountains?
Well, about 70 miles.
70 miles. So I only have to go 25 minutes and I'm in the high Uintas and enjoyed the creek there, enjoyed the canyon, the evergreens, the rabbits, the people brought their dogs up to chase the rabbits away. It was a wonderful thing. So I'm feeling pretty good and excited to get on this call. I left the event early. It was a family event, family and friends for Lee. She invited me up there, and then I brought her down early so we could do this call. So we left all the fun activities, but I'm looking forward to this discussion. Somebody said, "Oh, you're doing a podcast." Well, and they seemed real interested. And then I explained, well, these people have been on this call for nearly 15 years. And I bragged about you, Richard, and saying how you started a suicide prevention thing that's in the US and in Canada, and and they're using all principles of Buckminster Fuller, and how he talks about the energy in the universe and how it flows and how relationships are created. And she goes, "Oh, well." So I also bragged about Anne, being the director of a couple schools and how, uh, and I associated myself. I got to drop names and sound cool. So anyway, I'm delighted to be here with you, feeling my ego's all puffed up, and I'm excited to hear whatever it is you have to share. So, Richard, how are you feeling? And go ahead and lead us into this share
Yeah.
on your article that you found.
Well, I guess the first thing I have to say is your reference to being at a barbecue at the top of the mountain today um, also connects to a barbecue that I've been to, only I was out in the patio area and just came upstairs from down there. But more importantly, in terms of your 25 minutes into the mountains, it reminds me of a conference that I went to in Salt Lake City in 1995. It was closing out the UN year of something, I forget now. Um, and that weekend, number one is I was looking for two people, one from an architect who originally was from Salt Lake City and a street worker from LA that had set up a geodesic village for the homeless in LA. And when I was in India, um, year after they had a devastating earthquake, I thought sort of this kind of modular home would be something that they could use. And so I was trying to get in touch with these two gentlemen, and I couldn't do it. All the 6 months that I was in India in '94, I came to the conference and I was sitting in a room, and there was a dialogue started between the speaker and somebody in the audience. And it started to get heated. It was almost argumentative. And so I'm starting to look around to say, where are these people seated? And the next thing I knew, they were in the same row that I was in. And then when I looked at them again and heard the nature of their talk, I said to myself, "Oh my God, these are the two guys I've been looking for." and and they were there in part because the architect who had studied under Fuller was invited home to be a keynote speaker of some kind at this conference that was sponsored by basically the city of Salt Lake City. But then it got better, just to kind of run off the mouth here for a bit, then I started talking about Fuller and I started talking about John Denver and his connection to Fuller. And all of a sudden, on one side, somebody said, "Did you know John Denver's in town this weekend, putting on a concert in promotion of what would be the 2010 Olympics?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, we could get you in there if you wanted." They tried, but they didn't. And then another person said, because I was talking about the connection between Fuller and Einstein and Denver. And so another person said, "Oh, Einstein? Did you know that one of his students is just living up on the mountain 20 minutes from here?" Of course, I said no. And they said, "Well, we could get you a meeting with him." And so I said, "Go for it." Well, this one worked. And the next thing I knew, in March of that year, so it's still cool, but clear sky, all the stars are out. I've gone that 25 minutes up the mountain, and I'm sitting in this guy's front porch talking with a student of Einstein in such a surreal experience for me. It's like, what am I doing here? Does he really know who I am? Which means, does he really know what kind of nothing I am?
Yeah.
But it was one of the highlights of my life, really, to be able to recall going up the mountain like you did, only in the spring of the year and not the summer of the year. But it was that same 20 minutes away, and you're deep in the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And so anyway, today what happened is that, well, first of all, as I was saying earlier, our daughter went to a week-long course on art at a community college nearby. And so we met up last night, and she was telling me, showing us some of the work she did and telling us about the instructor and so forth. And she said the instructor sort of told us that when you're starting to create the form or the painting that you want to create, you start with a triangle. And I perked up my ears like, what do you mean start with a triangle? And then she said, yeah, when you look at a painting, you'll see immediately there's a triangle often in the foreground and the background. And if you reverse it, you can see the triangle from the horizon back to the foreground. And so I was saying, that's very interesting. Why would someone be thinking triangle when all of their school years they were taught to think in squares and XYZ coordinates? And she basically said, it's intuitive, it's natural, it's just the way an artist would or does see things. So that was fine, and we had a nice conversation. And then this morning, I get this article that we're just about to look at, and one of the first things that I see in the diagram, the Leonardo diagram, is the triangle from the navel down to the 2 feet. And then it goes on and says that to create an equilateral triangle from the navel down to the 2 feet, you had to spread the legs, if you want, wide enough until you got to your 60-degree angle. And then they showed, and that's where Leonardo probably started. And then from there, he created the whole artistic work, and these ratios started to come out. And his ratio was sort of 1.64 to 1.65. And then eventually they discovered the tetrahedral ratio, which is 1.633, and seems to hold almost I don't know, almost absolutely on 1.633. So it's not 1.618 like the golden ratio. And so it was fascinating to look at it. And again, as soon as I saw the Leonardo picture, my comment about the belly button came back. And I realized that in the diagram where he talks about going from the head to the navel to the feet, then it hit me, oh my God, the navel is the belly button. And so here I have just recently listened to a indigenous woman talk about the importance of the belly button. And then I'm hearing about the importance of the triangle for the artist, and then I get this article today, and then I hear the synonym to belly button in navel, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is all of this is just arriving at the same time. It's one of those synchronicity things. So yeah, I think it would be nice to even just for the two of us to walk our way through that article and invite others who get a chance to listen to the recording to have their input and to be able to carry on the dialogue later. And I think it really aligns itself with a lot of what we've been talking about on Amy Edmondson's book as well.
Well, and I just have a comment, is maybe I'm just going along with this too easily, but I don't think so. The triangular perspective does seem to be intuitive. In other words, I'm sitting right here and I'm looking out there and I have this peripheral vision that goes out. I'm in a triangle.
Yeah.
I live in a triangle. I don't live in a square. If my eyes were separated as far away as I can see on the outer edges and then somehow blocked, then I would be seeing in squares. But I'm right here and I look out and there's a triangle. And you're absolutely right. As I think about pictures, I have the subject of the pictures in front of me, and behind the picture, there's a perspective of what's going on behind. There's the triangle, and then there's the foreground with a base to the object of the picture. There's another triangle.
Yeah.
And now that you say this, it is intuitive. So
if you look at a railroad track, it is a triangle.
Yeah, no, but
not
wow,
parallel.
The fact that you just said that, because when we were sitting in our living room last night at this condo that we have, and I have a picture of the train station and the track and the elevators that my father operated for years. And so as I was pressing my daughter to say, tell me, why would an artist, think in a triangle when they have been sort of schooled out of that? And she looked up at that same picture and said exactly what Lee just said. Look at that picture. Look at those railroad tracks. That's a triangle.
yeah, cool.
And so, I mean, there's another synchronicity of me relating or being told, in this case by our daughter, to look at that artwork and see the triangular nature of the train tracks in the drawing, and have Lee point that out right now as here's a good example of what that means in terms of triangulation.
Cool. Are you completely?
Yeah.
I muted you to get rid of the echo. So if you complete? Okay, good. Lee's complete. So let's go to the article. And Lee is into railroad tracks, I guarantee you. Okay, really good. So here's this article. And you just tell me what you want me to do with it, Richard, and I'm just at your service.
Well, we might just sort of skim down through the abstract, and then we can get into the main article, which has the several diagrams, graphics.
Cool. Should I read? You want me to read?
Sure.
All right, abstract. For over 500 years, Leonardo da Vinci's geometric system of establishing the precise relationship between the circle and the square in his Vitruvian Man drawings has remained a mystery. This paper demonstrates that Leonardo's explicit textual reference to an equilateral triangle between the figure's legs provides his construction method and reveals the anatomical foundation for his proposed proportional choices. The analysis shows that Leonardo's equilateral triangles corresponds to Bonwill's triangle in dental anatomy, the foundational geometric relationship governing optimal human jaw function. Leonardo's systematic construction yields a ratio of 1.64 to 1.65 between the square's side and the circle's radius, matching both published measurements of the original drawing and the tetrahedral ratio of 1.633 found in optimal spatial arrangements. The ratio corresponds to modern calculations of optimal human craniofacial proportions, cranial architecture, 1.64 plus or minus 0.04, suggesting Leonardo identified geometric principles of optimal spatial organization that contemporary science recognizes as important to human anatomical optimization. The findings position Vitruvian Man as both an artistic masterpiece and a prescient science hypothesis about the mathematical relationships governing ideal human proportional design. Then it goes through some highlights here. Any comments so far on that, Richard? That kind of summarizes what you said.
Yeah, just sort of summarize exactly that. And then which one now?
Okay, so shall we continue then?
Yeah, let's just carry on.
All right, and if you don't mind, I'll read. If you want to read, please interrupt me. Jump in. Over here it says a graphical abstract, and so these are showing some of the graphics that we're going to get to, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Highlights. Leonardo's textual reference to an equilateral triangle between the figure's legs provides insight into his geometric approach, offering a potential solution to a long-standing question of circle-square relationship. Number two, Leonardo's equilateral triangle corresponds to Bonwill's triangle in dental anatomy, the geometric relationship governing optimal human jaw function established in 1864, suggesting Leonardo may have identified similar principles centuries earlier. Let's pause for a minute. Manu, how are you? Welcome to the call. Anne's not going to make it. Joe has a headache. And we've just started reading an article on Leonardo's Vitruvian Man, talking about how it's based on triangles. And we're going to continue to go through these highlights and then identify some graphics about Leonardo's perspective on whether he started with squares or triangles or what he did to get his thing going. So Manu, with that context, how are you feeling and what do you anticipate to get from today?
I'm feeling good. I'm grateful to be here. It's nice to see you guys. Just getting on the train. So I go to where you guys go. That's my expectation. Yeah.
Very good. All right, I'll continue to read these highlights and then we'll get down to the graphics. So any comments, we're gathering them along the way. The measured ratio of 1.64 to 1.65 in Leonardo's drawing approximates the tetrahedral ratio of 1.633, a mathematical relationship that appears in optimal sphere packing, tensegrity structures, and Fuller's vector equilibrium. Next point. Modern anatomical measurements, including cranial architecture ratios of 1.64 plus or minus 0.04, found exclusively in humans, suggest convergence around similar mathematical relationships across biological systems. And the final point, the analysis shows how combining art historical scholarship with contemporary anatomical knowledge can illuminate sophisticated mathematical thinking underlying Renaissance artistic achievement. And so now we have the graphical abstract. And I can display this full size, evidently. There we go. And there's that belly button you were talking about, Richard. And there's that triangle with the legs spread out.
Yeah, and in the text somewhere, it talks about the importance of spreading the legs so to create a equilateral triangle. So it's not just spread the legs to any place, it's to spread them to the formation of that equilateral triangle. And then from there, of course, it spreads out around and you can see the hexagonal sort of vectors
Yeah,
in the art piece.
yeah, configuration.
Question or intervention. So, sorry.
So you can just go down to the text there a little bit.
Okay,
See if
in order to do that, I need to, I just invited myself to save this. I'm sorry. Okay, let's, here's another one. Okay, this is figure 1. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
and this is the bond wheel showing the same equilateral triangle in reverse, if you want, as part of the jawbone structure. Yeah.
Bonneville's triangle in mandibular anatomy, period. Bonneville's equilateral triangle in mandibular anatomy, demonstrating the foundational geometric relationship governing optimal human jaw function, established in 1864. The triangle connects two mandibular condyles, jaw joints, to the midpoint of the lower central incisors and corresponds precisely to Leonardo's explicit reference to an equilateral triangle in his Vitruvian man construction.
Can I say something here?
Sure.
Wow. All of this is based on one thing. Man was not made to be vertical. Man is essentially pulsative. You understand what I mean by pulsative?
No.
It means it contracts and expands. And we know that when you contract, you get to a structure of minimum energy, of higher concentration, of minimum energy within. That is stability of high concentration. That's the vertical position. That's where you have the triangles. It's structured to be solid. When you expand towards a sphere. And you look at all of the construct that you were showing there. It is triangle in spheres. When you say that man spreads leg, is spread to form a triangle in the sphere. And the hexagon is a sphere. That you saw is a vector equilibrium.
Yeah, I think the point that's being made to start off with, because we'll read more into it, is that Leonardo did all of this in 1490.
But before him, that was done.
Yeah, well, let's just carry on. Let's carry on in the text. Yeah.
Yeah, the Egyptians did it.
Cool. I'm going to get back to sharing. Now, there's a lot of copy. There's a lot of copy here. Do we want to read all this, Richard? What do you think? Or just go down and discuss the highlights under each picture?
But Steve.
Yeah, well, there's
This seems to be interesting, the missing key. Go ahead, Mano. What were you going to say?
I don't know if what I say has sunk enough in us. Maybe I use wrong words when I say pulsative. Is that we are organic structures. We are dynamic. And we are dynamic within boundaries. And that is in terms of duality, basic duality. That is the basic general principle. We expand and we contract. In all that we do, it will always be that. Expansion, contraction. That's what I call pulsating. And then we, to study that movement, that motion of expansion, contraction, we identify the extremes. Or
Identify.
the extremes,
Okay,
or the intermediary stables.
okay,
The extremes is like the vector equilibrium.
right.
All is there.
So-
You know, like when we walk, we lift one limb, we put it down, the other one is up. We never, ever, unless we are sleeping or we are stationary on two legs.
But that's the point, Manu, is that, and as you said, if Leonardo understood this triangular sort of arrangement in 1490, and as you say, that can go back even further. I was, talking about my daughter's experience in an art course this past week, and the art instructor was saying that when you start to create the picture that you're going to paint, let's say, you start with a triangle.
Yes.
And so I said to my daughter, that's really interesting. Why would an artist start with a triangle when the science that they were taught, now we're going into 1600, 1700 science, so it's not Leonardo's, that said the coordinate systems are X, Y, Z and 90 degrees. In other words, squares and cubes. And that we were taught to believe that for the most part. And so again, her answer really was that this is, it's sort of in the artist's nature to see things triangular and to defy, if you want, what the classroom had been trying to teach them. So that's kind of where we started. And then this morning, the trim tab people, one of them sent this particular article, and it starts out with the triangular structure that Leonardo started with from the navel down to the feet, but it wasn't planting the feet in any particular place. They had to be planted in an equilateral triangle arrangement. And then he was able to go from there in terms of his artwork. But it was also his mathematical sort of understanding, even if he didn't have it articulated. So that's kind of where we're at. And for me, when you come in and say what you say, I don't think any one of us are disputing that, but what we're sort of trying to grapple with, I am anyway, is that in the surface way that I was taught, the emphasis was always on the XYZ coordinate system, which comes out of that science of the 1600s to 1900s. And it misses the kinds of things that you keep bringing up and sharing with us to have a deeper understanding beyond the science that we were sort of force-fed in different kinds of ways in the 20th century, let's say. So yeah, these are exciting things to be able to see the emergence of the triangle in this way, or the emergence of that constant sort of converging and diverging, and also to appreciate that there could be way more sort of ancient sort of understandings of these things that have been lost or have been covered up or have been disenfranchised in some way. And it's only, to me, in the recent half of the 20th century and into this century, is there a canopy, if you want, that's shrinking in order to allow this other information that's been around for a long time to come into play. So that's why it's so important to look at this kind of thing, and at the same time be able to understand your deep understanding of the mathematics of it all.
And I have a story for that, Richard. Can I tell you my story? Briefly. May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Once upon a time, all the world was in a cave. The bravest and the strongest, they built themselves cubes. That was the world. They subjected the population. And then there was a spark. And then there was some illuminated guy that saw a triangle. The triangle threatened the cube. There was a violent repression. The guy who saw the triangle took refuge in a temple and took with him his science. It became a sacred science, a sacred science. And some of them become subjected to the ruler who was still square. And then it allowed the populace to bred charlatans. And charlatans became complex. And sometime among charlatans, there were guys who could see the triangle. And they could dig deeper, get in the tunnels of a temple, and saw the light. And that has been the quest for mankind. We refuse to see the light in the beginning. We dig in tunnels to go to light. And we come full circle in a sphere. That's my story.
Cool story. Let's go back to the article and see what this perspective is and see if this can share somehow we can share some understanding with these folks. The missing key, Leonardo's own words. The solution to this geometric mystery has been hiding in plain sight within Leonardo's own manuscript notes accompanying the drawing, period. In his characteristic mirror script, Leonardo wrote, "If you open your legs enough that your head is lowered by 1/14 of your height, and raise your hands enough that your extended finger touch the line of the top of your head, know that the center of extended limbs will be the navel, and the space between the legs will be an equilateral triangle." This is Leonardo's, this, I guess, from a book called Leonardo, written in 1970. Is that correct, Richard?
I think so, yes. That
Yeah.
threw me off a bit, but I think it's almost like his footnote that he wrote, but no one paid, a lot of attention to it. And so
Yeah.
I think that's why they're saying the mystery is actually in plain sight.
Yeah, if you open your legs enough that your head is lowered by 1/14 of your height, and raise your hands enough that your extended fingers touch the line of the top of your head, know that the center of the extended limbs will be the navel, and the space between the legs will be an equilateral triangle. Yeah, so evidently he was really big on equilateral triangles.
Yeah, and there he was saying it's natural. It wasn't that he set out to spread the legs to 60 degrees. He said, if you do this, that's what you'll get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maskia, 2018, says a geometric analysis carried out on three homonymous works known as the Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci, Giacomo Andrea de Ferrara, and Guglielmo, I wish I was better at Italian names or Spanish names, Falandro, has identified the equilateral triangle as the common feature. It is hypothesized that Leonardo's equilateral triangle corresponds to a fundamental principle of human craniofacial architecture that wouldn't be formally established until the 19th century. And of course, they're talking about that dental structure. Cool. Is there anything else up here that we need to read that we may have missed?
No, I
That
don't
seems like we hit the
So
problem.
can you show the Vitruvian man again? Extend it.
know. Yeah, there you
Okay,
see it.
that's where the navel is. It means that the navel is the center of the hexagon. That's what it means, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
it means that the navel is the center of the stretched out arms that are level to the head. And in doing that, the legs actually automatically stretch out to a 60-degree angle. And the head comes down, what does it say, 1/14?
1/14.
1/14, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can see the lines of the hexagon, and the actual hexagon in the head and chest area actually go higher than the lines across the top of the head.
Yeah.
And in fact, you can see the square too, from the top of the head line down to the bottom of the circle, which cuts across under the bottom of the feet. And so you end up with, I don't know if that's a square or it's an actual rectangle, but
And
But
maybe it's
you could also argue here that the head, the line that is across the arms of the hands and the top of the head becomes the lines where the center of gravity of the upper triangle is. The center of gravity is always 1/3 to the base and 2/3 up to the vertex. That is opposite to the base.
I think if you measured that, you would find the center is probably somewhere in the face.
Yes, somewhere there, but on the upper face. Actually, I argue that it will be right at the top of a face.
And if you went to get the center of the bottom triangle, I think you would find it almost where the knees are.
agreed. I was going to make
Yes,
that
almost,
comment.
yes. Maybe. I don't know.
And I want to point this out, but that whole red circle is the torus. In other words, the physical matter that comprises the human body, the boundaries of that development are that toral energy field which is the home for the matter that forms the human body. And so I'm going to say that
it's more than that, Steve. It's a 4 torus. It's a quadruple torus. Because that is the sphere. It is a quadruple torus. It describes the whole universe. You know that you can define the sphere by 4 quarters, no? 4 quarters that come together to make a sphere. And that is a quadruple torus.
It's a double tetrahedron.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm doing now when I talk about the 4 quarters, to get away from the quadrant idea of the squares, I use the 4 tetrons.
And the 4 tetrons is the electromagnetic and the gravity field together.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. 2 divergent tetrahedron and 2 convergent tetrahedron.
And that's why I'm trying to use the word tetrants in order not to slip back into the idea of quadrants in terms of a 90-degree angle
Yeah.
projection. Yeah.
So you see, Steve, you see that it's two bow ties, no? Well, that's what we're talking about
Yes.
here. It is two bow ties that overflow, and the overflow of it meshes into a sphere. You have the bow tie of, I mean, it depends where you take it. You can take it anywhere, any two that are perpendicular like this. I don't know how to show it.
Well, you've got a vertical and a horizontal bow tie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, let's carry on with that. Some of that reading. That's because we want to get into the figures in terms of. I mean, they look as if they're, in approximate sense, the same figures, but
Yeah.
the article is, I think, trying to converge down to a particular figure that may be more accurate than other figures in terms of the ratio.
Gosh, there seems to be quite a bit of distortion here.
Yeah, I think that's just in that.
No, that's it. That's it, Steve. If you take that, you're seeing what you have there, and you put at the top, another tetrahedron to make the first bow tie, and you put laterally the others that way. That's our figure, and that's how it meshes to make the globe, to make the sphere.
Cool.
All of
I'll
those lines
read.
that you have there, all of the lines that you have there are true.
So
Yeah,
let's
let me
get down into the actual figures and see what we think, because I know this is something very important to Manu.
And let me read this little description of these great spheres that we're reading about here. Monson's spherical theory and tetrahedral configuration. Monson's spherical theory and tetrahedral configuration showing how the mandible forms a tetrahedron with Brownell's equilateral triangle at its base and apex extending to the glabella. This three-dimensional dental geometry demonstrates the tetrahedral relationship that yield the 1.633 ratio between Monson's sphere and the circumsphere of the tetrahedral unit. I wish that these were easier to read.
But are you seeing the link between the phi and this?
Yes,
Does
so
anybody
keep
see it?
going. Keep going, and you'll see the phi ratio come
Yeah,
up.
because the phi
Yeah.
plus the structure make the whole.
Well, keep going. This is the importance of this article for me in terms of its connection to the phi ratio.
Figure
By the way,
3A.
you look at that and what I drew here.
Yeah, let's keep going.
That I drew yesterday when I read Richard. Not when I was thinking about it, and I drew yesterday.
Well, let's that's timely,
That's important.
synchronistic that you drew it yesterday. Let's
Yeah.
examine this article, and then you can show us that that drawing. Okay, tetrahedral geometry in human craniofacial architecture, period. The human skull demonstrates natural organization around tetrahedral and triangular geometries that maximize mechanical efficiency. Brownell's triangle, green, forms an equilateral triangle connecting to the two mandibular condyles and the midpoint of the lower central incisors. The circle of Spee, purple, and a circle of Spee, blue, represent optimal arrangements for the dental occlusion that naturally emerge from these tetrahedral relationships. This geometric organization maximizes force transmission efficiency during mastication, revealing the tetrahedral ratio's presence in human anatomical optimization. Circle of Spee. Evidently that that red circle around the Vitruvian man is called the circle of Spee. I wonder who gave it that name. And here's Brownell's triangle and the curve of Spee. There's your phi. And let's see here. Figure 3b, Leonardo's Vitruvian man and optimal geometric relationships. Leonardo's construction demonstrates the same tetrahedral principles found in craniofacial architecture. The equilateral triangle, green, and Leonardo's explicitly referenced between his figure's legs, when replicated 6 times around the navel, creates the hexagonal pattern, yellow, that generates the measured ratio of approximately 1.64 between the square's side and the circle's radius. The geometric relationship may represent Leonardo's intuitive recognition. There's the cube octahedron. Fuller's vector equilibrium structure. Fuller's vector equilibrium formed by 4 hexagons intersecting at 60 degrees, demonstrating the fundamental geometric structure of perfect tensegrity. The configuration represents the uniquely balanced form where vector forces from the center point are perfectly balanced by circumferentially restraining vectors, creating the geometric foundation underlying optimal spatial organization. Okay, figure 5. Hexagonal close packing of spheres. Hexagonal close packing of spheres demonstrating the mathematical foundation underlying Leonardo's geometric system. The ratio, C divided by A equals the square root of 8 divided by 3 equals 1.633, represents the optimal 3-dimensional spatial organization and corresponds closely to the proportional relationships Leonardo achieved through his equilateral triangle construction, revealing a tetrahedral ratio that emerges from efficient spatial arrangements.
Yeah, I think as we keep going, I think the point that's being made in this article that the tetrahedral ratio of 1.633 starts to become, if you want, more consistent and maybe a little bit more accurate than the golden ratio of 1.618. So it's just interesting to keep going through and connecting to these ratio numbers, which for me at first glance, well, who cares? 1.633, 1.64, it's all, 1.6. But they seem to be wanting to be a bit more precise here and linking it back to Leonardo's artistic work to begin with. Anyway, that's, if we can carry on, I think the other ratios start to surface in the text.
Leonardo's hexagonal circle pattern, studies from the Codex Atlanticus, folios 307V and 309V, demonstrating his systematic investigation into overlapping circular arrangements that create triangular tessellations. Tessellations. Thank you. These drawings provide direct evidence that Leonardo was actively exploring the same principles of efficient spatial packing that modern mathematics recognizes as fundamental to optimal organization, supporting the arguments that his Vitruvian man construction was based on sophisticated geometric understanding. Cool. Well, that definitely looks like, yeah, that looks like the flower of life. Go ahead, Manu.
I was just going to say, I went a different method. Another method here. That is the method of a balance sheet of universe, where you have assets and liabilities. The assets were electric field, magnetic field and the gravity field. What I call asset are those things that can be made that exercise a utility function. They can be transformed into heat. They are currency. They are there working directly. And then you have the way you finance that. You finance that through liabilities. And the liability is essentially the phi. And the phi is what I call potential energy, tantalizingly electromagnetic gravity. And that is the word things like chemical, radioactive, etc., etc. So,
Yeah, so let's kind of push on down and find the phi ratio information, and because I think that's the critical part for us to look at, given our attention
But
to phi.
the phi was actually a lot earlier deductible. The phi is the ratio of cube to triangle. That's the 1/633. The ratio
So
of square of square to
let's
triangle.
keep reading, because I think what you're saying now may be important for us to understand if there's a difference sort of between phi and tetrahedral ratio.
And Manu, while you have the floor there, do you want to show that video or that drawing that you did?
This is it here. Basically, okay, this was done in a rush. You see here, I was trying to establish Euler's identity using what we know generally. And then you have here the sphere. What I invent, you know, what we feel like the sphere, the most expanded. You have here in orange the boundary. Within that, you have the arrangement of the quadruple torus, which is here, which I saw somewhere there. And then you have a core, which is the macro, micro, and then you have the outside here, which is the IVM. That is the vector matrix. That's the tropic vector matrix. It just goes layer, whatever, in all direction infinitely. So you have between this in yellow, the cushions.
If you'll hold that up, I can take a screenshot of it and then you can refer to the screenshot.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, hang on. Okay,
And that's
good.
a regular hexagon.
Well, I
Is
just
that-
drew it. I didn't keep any proportion.
I think those
Oh,
are two tetrahedra.
Okay, yes. 4 tetrahedron.
They're four tetrahedra. Hang on, I'm gonna take your picture here and display it.
Have you?
Hang on. I'm having a little, there we go. Okay, bam.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna shrink
So-
it for a second, then I make it big again. Go ahead.
Everything that we do, our universe is universe. Uni means one version of a story, a united version of a story. We understand the same. So it's the sum total of all of our experiences, not at 180 degrees and overlapping. That universe is structured. It is structured is a quadruple torus in the most contracted form. Right? So it is something that we know that has lines, edges. Those edges is where energy flows in terms of maintaining the, if you call it, between quotes, stability of the structure. It is where electric energy flows along those lines. Now, our structure also has windows. Through those windows, things that are finer, freer energy exchanges. It exchanges around the 4 windows or the 8 windows, whatever, to make a double. Through, that is a magnetic field. That is always at 90 degrees to the line of flow of edges, because it comes like this. Any flow, it comes like that, like circular to any line. That is a magnetic energy. In the micro, inside there is a core of something, the thing in red. That is concentrated, that is, okay. And then this torus, this quadruple torus goes round, meshes all the way and come back. It goes out and come back in, because the total energy of nature is constant. I don't say of universe, of nature. That is the principle. So
okay, let's keep looking for that phi number, yeah.
yes. So when you get that, if you keep on going out plus and coming back in, it means that my structure is a vector, is going somewhere. A structure is always made for a purpose. I might not know the purpose, but whoever created nature made universe for a purpose, is evolving. So it's a vector with amplitude, with beginning, and with end. So it has poles, 2 poles, the South Pole and the North Pole. To allow the music of the edges, which edges are the resonance of many, many lines of flow of energy.
Yeah.
Yes. To express itself, to allow Steve to play his music in a way that makes sense to us. There's round it that yoke, that yellow thing. And the function of a yoke is to dampen the cacophony or the monotony or the silence of the surrounding isotropic vector matrix. That is the phi.
Yeah, and that has a number to it.
Yes. And if you take the ratio,
And that number is
0.6. You know, like if you take the ratio of, you know, like a ratio, if you take, for example, the edge of a top triangle.
yeah, no, it's but there's a number.
0.6 something.
That's with the plus or minus 0.064.
Yeah. 0.64. And the total is 1, that is a unit of the triangle, the edge of a triangle, plus 0.64 to get to that boundary.
Okay. Are you complete with that?
Yes, and then when you verify that, when I put that together with my balance sheet of nature, note that I say nature, I don't say universe, of nature, Euler's identity is verified.
Yeah, and what, again, I think if we read a little bit further, this is what's been intriguing me, because what you've just done is saying when you add the 1 to it, you end up with 1.64. I've also seen the number 1.618. And what seems to be coming through in this article is the consistency of 1.633.
Yes.
And it's not a lot of difference, but it seems like it's a very significant issue in terms of solving a long sought after solution. So that's why I wanted to us to read to the to get to the phi number as well.
1.633 is exactly the ratio of a cube to the tetrahedron inside.
Well, it's called the tetrahedral ratio.
Yes, is a ratio. If you take the volume of a cube, that is what the six. That's what the six was. A cube is a six-edged stuff, and you divide by the tetrahedron, a triangle, 3 square root of it. I mean, no. You're talking about logarithmic thing here. 2 to the power of 3. That is 8. And the other one is the tetrahedron. 8 divided by 3 square root gives you 1.666.
Yeah, I don't know if we've got it in the text, but what it's doing for me, Manu, and that's why it's so important for us to discuss, is that it's starting to say to me that the tetrahedral ratio is the ratio number we should be attached to, and not necessarily the phi or that particular number, or even to use phi, we should be using tetrahedral ratio. That's what I'm starting to get out of this. And
yes, that's exactly the point. That is exactly the point. It is that in accounting for everything universe, you have to use 4 dimension. You have to use tetrahedron. Because if you go, yes.
Well, I'm just going to continue the reading here. So finish your sentence.
No, I'm true. I think
Okay.
we are saying the same thing.
Good. So discussion, convergent evidence. The evidence examined in this paper suggests that Leonardo's Vitruvian Man incorporates geometric principles that anticipate modern understanding of optimal biological architecture. The measured proportions between the space and the square, yielding ratios of 1.64 to 1.65, bear striking similarity to the previous termed tetrahedral constant, a mathematical relationship that defines optimal spatial arrangements in both synthetic and biological systems. Leonardo's explicit reference to the equilateral triangle between the figure's legs provides the key to understanding his geometric construction method. This triangle corresponds to Bonwell's triangle in dental anatomy, establishing the anatomical foundation for his proportional choices. The geometric relationships embedded in drawing reflect the principles of tensegrity and optimal force distribution that wouldn't be formally recognized until the 20th century. The subsequent discovery of similar ratios is multiple domains validates Leonardo's vision. Hexagonal, close-packed crystal structures exhibit the ideal C to A ratio of 1.633, and human cranial architecture shows ratios of 1.64 plus or minus 0.04, found exclusively in humans, and human dental geometry reveals relationships involving optimal triangle and spherical arrangements. So it's kind of repeating itself. Here we go. Conclusion. The analysis reveals that Leonardo's Vitruvian Man incorporates geometric principles that anticipate modern understanding of optimal biological architecture. The convergence of Leonardo's measured ratios, 1.64 to 1.65, with the previously termed tetrahedral constant suggests that human anatomy has evolved according to geometric principles that govern optimal spatial organization throughout the universe. From the hexagonal close packing of atoms to the tetrahedral architecture of dental occlusion to the cranial proportions found exclusively in humans, we observe constant mathematical relationships encoded in biological form. Leonardo's geometric construction successfully encoded fundamental spatial relationships in human form, demonstrating the remarkable precision of his Renaissance vision of mathematical unity between the human figure and natural order. Vitruvian Man stands as a testament to Leonardo's insight that human proportions reflect deeper mathematical principles governing optimal spatial organization. Fuller's isotropic vector matrix, essentially a fractal extension of the vector equilibrium, represented throughout all space, Fuller, 1975, provides a compelling framework for understanding these relationships, suggesting that space itself may be organized according to tetrahedral, octahedral geometries that generate the precisely or the previously termed tetrahedral ratio. The geometric duality embedded in Leonardo's construction reveals a fundamental relationship. The triangular components, hyphen, explained by Leonardo's explicit equilateral triangle and Bonwell's triangle, hyphen, naturally tessellate into spherical arrangements through optimal packing principles, generating the circular boundary. Simultaneously, the octahedral relationships from Fuller's space-filling matrix create the square geometry. The vector equilibrium itself displays prominent square faces where octahedral elements intersect. Figure 4. Did we see figure 4? Oh, that's down below. Now I lost where I was reading. Okay, I was reading the conclusion.
Yeah, down in the conclusion.
Yeah. And then it says, see figure 4. Renaissance characters movement. Here we go. I'll just read this last part again. The mathematical validation opens new possibilities for dental science. If human craniofacial systems have indeed evolved according to the same geometric principles that govern optimal spatial organization throughout nature, our understanding of dental function, treatment planning, and prosthetic design could be found fundamentally transformed. Cool. Rather than viewing dental anatomy as arbitrary and as arbitrary biological form, we might approach it as an expression of universal mathematical principles of optimal spatial efficiency, principles that Leonardo intuited centuries before modern science. So here are the declarations. This is the discussion of current thing, which we just read. I thought there might be another. Okay, here's a declaration. The author declares no financial or commercial interest. And there are some sources. I don't know, are these worth clicking on, do you think?
No, I don't think so. No, I think well, for me anyway, and this has been so valuable because I really had it in my mind that of those different ratio figures, one was particularly associated with the phi. And that's what I wanted to get at in terms of whether phi and the tetrahedral constant are more or less the same, or whether what they are doing is surfacing the idea or the information or the proof that the tetrahedral constant at 1.633 is the ratio that is even, if you want, more accurate than phi. And that's where Manu's understanding of all this comes into play to tease that out in terms of whether there is something important in noting the difference between our tetrahedral constant at 1.633 and a phi ratio at 1.6, whatever it is, 1.8.
1.618, I think.
Yeah, and as you say, they're so close, but it just seems like this is articulating something special, especially when it talks about a long sought sort of solution to a mystery, and saying that the answer was actually in plain sight in what I'm treating as a footnote or yeah, like a footnote to that Leonardo wrote about, but in a sense was missed over all these centuries.
I just double checked and asked Google Lens to tell me what C was here. And C is the body-centered cubic. It's the height of the unit cell in a body-centered cubic. So C represents the height of the unit cell. And I'm going to ask it, what is A?
There's A down at the bottom.
Yeah. And A refers to the lattice parameter or edge length of the body-centered cubic. So this is the lattice parameter, and this is the height of the unit cell. Very interesting.
Can we go a little bit differently?
Can we go where?
Just explain that a little bit, the C and A.
Go ahead.
And
Do you have some thoughts on it?
or yes. When you're calculating volumes, first, if your referential is the 4-dimensional or whatever that you have, we understand that in order to do it, we use logarithmic scale. And that the volume of a cube, the real volume, is the volume of a sphere is in a proportion to 2. You have two things to the power of 3. 2 to the power of 3, that's 8. Now, if you're counting linearly, you just go from center to center. That is one wavelength. That is A. And that will be 3. 3. Because you are taking the linear stuff to 3 axes, you're adding them linearly. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. Now, we understand that we're going to talk about the real thing is the wavelength of the center of the sphere to the point at which we want to make the measurement. It's R squared. Is that wavelength squared? So if you do the ratio of 8 divided by 3 to the power of 3, that is the exponential accounting, divided by the linear accounting, that is 3, and you take the square root of it, it is exactly that ratio. It has to do with the form that you are, the referential, the unit of account that you are using to account for universe.
Now, is that ratio, in a sense, more accurate than the phi ratio?
Well, the phi has been estimated. It depends. But we know that it's around there. It's estimated. You can calculate it. But we know that anything around that, it has to do with the cube and the triangle, or the square and the triangle. It has to do with it. And that ratio is an estimate that is valid. I don't know which one is more precise. You can calculate it. It's like you were asking me to use pi to calculate something, and then I take 3.14, and somebody goes and take 3.14 something. And by the way, as a story, that cost me a lot of grades in the senior certificate. We had a calculus where it was a ratio and there was pi square. And that pi square, in order to have time, is a limited time. You just have to round it to 10. And I spent so much at the time when we didn't have, we have a sliding rule. That's what. And then you have you have to calculate. As I wasted a lot of time calculating to the highest possible accuracy, 3.14 something square. it wasn't necessary for me to draw my conclusion. I lost a lot. To me, it was a lot. I cried, actually. In high school, I cried.
Well, that's why I thought that I was getting something out of this, in the sense that a pi is it's fairly accurate, but it's still an approximation. And then when I read this, it keeps saying from the different calculations that 1.633 is actually a constant. Doesn't matter which way you work out the calculation or the ratio, you end up with 1.633.
It's a little bit different. Huh? It's saying the ratio is a constant. We know it. But it didn't say it's 1.633. That's a different way of saying it. The principle that that ratio we know is a constant.
Yes, we know the ratio is a constant, and then this one is saying the solution or the outcome is a constant through the tetrahedral measurement, but it's still an approximation through the phi.
Yes. Once you say measurement,
Wow.
there's uncertainty. Once you use that word, either you say it is constant, or you say I measure it with this uncertainty plus or minus something. That is two ways of doing things.
The tetrahedral constant seems to be, doesn't come out with a plus or minus. It comes out with an exact.
What I'm saying is that when you say tetrahedral constant, it does not need a value. It is a principle. It's like a tetrahedron. Tetrahedron doesn't depend on the dimension of the edge. So when it talks about ratios, the units are washed away, they're eliminated. It's just a pure number that is constant. But again, this is just, like mechanics of the sound that we're talking about here. We get the substance there.
And it brings us back to what is the excitement in solving this mystery that's been out there for a long time, and is the solution coming up with this? If you want a measurement to that tetrahedral constant, and so we've got the constant, and then we actually got a number out of this exercise that comes out to 1.633, which is pretty close to what Leonardo was doing in 1490.
Yeah. To me, the excitement of it, if you want, is that it is going to accelerate the invention of anti-anthropic devices. Is in the design. Instead of, it's like the estimation. Instead of you being in the dark, somebody has shared the light onto things so that you see the focal points of your energy flow and you can better cable your device. That's what it means to me. That's where the interest is. And that's where all the applications are. Applications of all the principles that we can do as human are always going to be artifacts, are always going to be things that will decay, that will die. It's built for a moment, for a segment of time. It will last. We want to extend it to the most possible, but it is subjected to the laws of nature. It will decay. And hopefully, we learn more of nature to all the time redesign, reinforce, or do better. That's the way we survive. That's the game of life.
Well, it's also, I mean, this is the other thing that more and more people are talking about, and that is the, why isn't Fuller's sort of approach and understanding of all of this not as prevalent in our educational system as it might be? And it seems to me that the more we end up with these an article like this that says, hey, we solved a long-standing mystery is going to be another way to invite people to pay more attention to Fuller's work and to do the very thing that you just said, then figure out practical applications in living that will benefit everybody in a way that carries out it protects or sustains the internal integrity and the regeneration of the universe, which Fuller, of course, said that's the function of a human being, is to try and keep that ship going. And yet,
but we
so many
love
times over history, we found man seems to not understand that and goes the other way and says, let's see how many heads I can chop off.
because we love to be Israelite in the Sinai.
Yeah.
That's what we love. We love type 1. we love, that's our natural attraction. We want to be type 1 always. We do a lot of things that are useless. And once in a while we strike something. And then we want to appropriate it as if we, by design, did it. It's not. We love to wander. We love to be wandering and suffering. We love it. It's just part of a thing. So we might some might be say optimistic or pessimistic. We might preach, but you know, we don't like effort. And effort to extract from a position where we ourselves put ourselves in, because it is our cultures, the values that we adapted, that cemented the Euclidean geometry. And that enclosed us into this prison. And in order to see the light, we first have to be out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And to be out of prison, we need to imagine it first. Our minds have to attune to being free.
Well, and that's also saying that we must become more Euler-like than we are Euclidean-like.
Exactly. We must see beyond the right angles, beyond the breaks. That this we must see, yeah. Even if it does this, maybe just part of energy that did this, and there's still energy going that way. Yes.
Wow, this has been really fulfilling for me.
Steve is in a deep thought there. That's what I've seen. I know my friend Steve. Say it, Steve. Say it when it's matter. You know the song I sent you? You are mute. Steve, we can't hear you. Yes. Steve, we can't hear.
I was on mute. Okay, good. It's about time to wrap it up. So I think it'd be a good time for takeaways. I have a question before we do takeaways, and so because I'm what I hear Richard saying is that there seems to be a lot of emphasis, even in cosmometry, about phi. But it seems to me that phi is the dual of the tetrahedral ratio. And what we ought to be talking about is the tetrahedral ratio and not about phi. I think, Richard, is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what I'm getting out of it. That's what I'm thinking is the excitement of this mystery that's now solved.
Yeah,
That we have something that's called a tetrahedral constant, which
yeah,
if I hear Manu right, the ratio has always been a constant, but now there's a number that's attached to it, and it's a little bit different than the phi number,
yeah,
which is also often referred to as a close approximate. But
yeah,
what I was reading out of this article is the tetrahedral constant seems to be a repeated constant.
right.
Even though it's a decimalized number, it's still the number that comes up constantly.
Right, and the phi number is based on it. So why aren't we talking about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so because the phi is a distraction. It's like saying sunrise and sunset.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because phi is the result of this tetrahedral constant or this tetrahedral ratio.
Mhm.
So,
Actually, Steve, the difference is this one is on the method. One is inductive, the other one is deductive. What we see here, the tetrahedral ratio is deductive.
okay,
The phi resulted from, like, you divide the parts and then
yeah,
you try to put them together,
yeah,
get to the whole. So the
yeah,
phi is the aggregate, is a series, remember? It's a series of rational numbers verify a certain principle that tend towards something.
okay.
You get me?
So if I understand,
Yeah.
go ahead,
No, I'm true.
go ahead.
I'm just saying
Okay,
that it is the same thing, but just expressed differently and deducted differently.
yeah. And if I understand right, this part right here is the phi part. That's what all this ratio here, this swirling is all about, represented in this arc right here, relative to the
Yeah.
hexagonal part. That's what this little green guy is here. There's phi right there. And if I take a look at this, here's phi right here, represented by my spherical tetrahedron.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, is this phi right here relative to this triangular base? Or is phi only part of a hexagonal relationship? That would be
Steve,
my question.
the best way to see it is this one. And I found it is make it easier for me. You say the total is always described by the structure and the near structure, or the unstructured, and the near structure. The structure and the tantalizing, that's the way I call it. Because the unstructured is the isotropic vector matrix out there. So the structure is accounted for in triangles, in the structure, as we say. So if you draw the whole as a sphere, every event is a sphere at a point. Whatever is outside the structure, but still within the sphere, is the phi, is the
Yeah.
dampener,
So
is the
this is the
fat.
phi.
Yes.
This whole thing right here is the phi.
Yes. Those three are the phi. That's why they measure the ratio. You remember the way they measure the ratio of that thing?
Yeah. Okay, good.
Everything that is out there, everything that is out of the hexagon in the Leonardo's man, between the
yeah.
hexagon and the red circle is the phi,
Yeah.
constitute the phi. That's the
Cool.
way I see it. And it's easier, it's generic, it gives you the ratio of 2 to the power, the square root of 2 to the power of 3 divided by 3. That's
So
it.
Manu, thank you for sharing. And do you want to go ahead and start our takeaway today? How are you feeling, Manu? What's your takeaway?
I feel good to be with you guys all the time that I'm with you guys. I wake up late. I'm sorry to be late, but every time I come, it's very exciting and that titillates my brains. I'm very happy that Lee is here, that she joined, and I hope that she got something from our manly conversation. What I take away is the importance of always going to the fundamental. And the fundamental has to do with forms. And the form of rigidity is the triangle or the tetrahedron. The form of flexibility is the square of a cube. And everything structural that is dynamic is built by a rational combination of those two. And that's the organic part of it. That's what I take away. Lee, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Well, I feel really grateful.
Unmute. Unmute.
Can you unmute me?
Steve was mute. Lee, you can speak.
There we go.
Okay.
I got it. Finally, I'm learning. I am very happy that I left my family and came to this meeting because it taught me an awful lot. I heard many times phi being spoken in past situations and didn't know what phi meant. And thank you for all of that. I have been so excited because I have been raised as an artist and knew about the train tracks being a triangle and seeing it develop in a mathematical perspective has been phenomenal for me. Never thought of it as being mathematical, other than there's a triangle and there's your face. But we always have a circle that we use or an oval to make a face drawing. And we've got to remember to use the circles that have been shown in all of the drawings. The circles are very important, especially in art. So I got a lot out of that, and I thank you for that. Richard, what is your takeaway, and how are you feeling?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the excitements about this, this particular article is that I've had a lot of dental difficulties over the years. And so my dentist has made a good living off of me. And I'm still going to her quite frequently, and I've been with her for over 20 years, maybe more. And so I'm quite excited about trying to get this article to her to, in a sense, say to her, you know, every time I've been sitting in the chair and you've been rooting around in my mouth trying to be helpful to me, you and I have been connected through the same geometric sort of structuring, and we didn't know it. And I think she'll really she'll be excited about this. Anyway, so that's a big takeaway for me. The other big takeaway is the synchronicity of the language of triangle that came into my sphere yesterday through our daughter and her art course. And then this morning to have this article from one of the Trim Tab members be circulated. And as soon as I saw it or started to read through it, I said to myself, it's got to go out to this group. And when I said this group in my mind, I meant both Saturday night and Wednesday morning for us to look at this. And of course, the indigenous connection that I've had in the recent months about the head and the belly button and the feet on the earth. As soon as I heard belly button in the way it was described to me, I thought tetrahedron. I also think of the the tetrahedral structure that Manu has pointed out in terms of two eyes, a nose, and a mouth or a chin. And now we've seen it in the dental structure, in that anatomical sense, and we've seen it in Leonardo's original artwork. And so again, it just keeps reinforcing to me that every time I look around, I see the basic tetrahedral triangle sort of structure all around us, which again, going back to what Manu has said earlier and other times, that the function of all of this is to turn it into practical applications. And of course, what I've shared a few times about what happened when we got into the suicide prevention work, and I used the tetrahedron to create a model that somehow or another has been attractive to the workshop participant, and they love it. They haven't the slightest idea really where it came from, even though I've done slide presentations of it. But for the most part, they just like it because it's a nice framework. It's a nice pathway. And until I sit down with people kind of on a one-to-one, almost like this, and tell them about the connection to Fuller and his work, they have no idea, and their mind is blown when they hear that it's not just a fancy diagram that somebody thought that looked beautiful and pulled it off of a shelf. It's actually connected to molecular structure, and it's connected to the carbon atom, and it's connected to the essence of life, which is what suicide prevention is all about. It's not about preventing death. It's about facilitating life.
Yes.
And that's the whole point of it. So this to me was a wonderful evening that we were able to look at this document and take a little bit of a rest from Amy's book, but a lot of what we're reading and talking about in her book is exactly this same kind of issue. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you. Steve, back to you. How are you feeling and what's your takeaway?
Really good. So I'm going to be contemplating this idea of how my focus has been. Well, we seem to, I've learned about pi and I've learned about phi. And those seems to be artifacts of something that's more real. And so that's thought-provoking. What is it about human nature? What is it about me that looks at the artifacts and doesn't look at the reality? And what's interesting is that there's a current theme going on in physics where they're deducing that quantum physics is merely looking at artifacts that are created when you throw mud on the wall. And so everybody's studying the mud on the wall and they're not looking at the wall. We look at the artifacts and not look at reality. We look at the artifact of the sunset and the sunrise, and we perceive that as reality. And I'm just wondering how much amnesia that creates. I mean, if I'm willing to be satisfied with the language that refers to sunrise and sunset and not address the reality of the rotation of the earth and sun sight and sun eclipse, what state of mind does that put me in terms of reality? It creates kind of like a selective amnesia. And so I'm loving this idea of the tetrahedral ratio and this idea of and historically my focus on phi. However, I will say that the octahedron, because the isotropic vector matrix is made up of tetrahedra and then octahedra, which of course the base of the octahedron, the center line in the octahedron creates the squares in the vector equilibrium. So I'm going to be contemplating all that because the squares are artifacts in a way of the triangles of the tetrahedron. However, they make things happen.
Right.
So interesting, you know. But I'm going to be contemplating this tetrahedral ratio of 1.633. It certainly is easier than remembering 3.141678 and whatever and 1.61815 for whatever the hell. I mean, these irrational numbers, you know, these irrational numbers. Why is it I want to stay in an irrational universe? Why not move to a rational universe? And how much would that affect life? Maybe I need to be in an irrational universe and in order to enjoy my experience as a human being. Maybe that's the reality. And that once I move out of irrationality, I'm become bored or I become God or something. You know?
You just
Anyway.
become a square.
Yes, that's right. I become a square. Okay, that just undermined my whole thing, Richard. Okay. I'm complete.
Yes,
And,
let me exchange something, Steve. Pi is transcendental.
Yeah.
That means we imagine something out of what we can see. And then we remark that there was a certain ratio of something in principle that made our notion of sphere, what is out there is a sphere. Remember, we've never seen the sphere. Our notion of a sphere coherent. It means it transcends our divisions, our structure. So the notion of pi transcends our division. Phi is irrational as a consequence of the choice of the referential that we take to account for what is inside our structure. Phi measure the leftovers that are not used at the instant because the structure is used. It's performed for a currency. It is utilitarian for something immediate. The phi is what is left over, is the saving. And I also drew something here, which can be, we can all do it. Steve, can you take a snapshot of this and show?
Yeah, hang on a second. Oh, hang on a second. All right. All right, I got it.
Okay, show it.
Go and
Okay, right. Do you see the long wave and the shorter wave? The orange and the green.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, first, what I did to get to this, I first drew the black square. You see it?
Sure.
Yeah.
On a sheet that has lines. Okay, let me go to the substance first. The ratio, the long one is 8. If you measure it, is 8. And the short one, the green, is 3.
right.
The way I was just trying to draw things here. I first drew the square in black. Then I traced the circle. I took my compass and I traced the circle around it. Then I divide the circle into 6, into an hexagon. And I drew that. Now, and then I look at what is what is on the axis of a cone. You know, like you see the cone, the double cone, the tetrahedron, the two tetrahedra, the two triangles that come like this.
Yeah.
Yes. So I measure the distance between the outer edge of the square on top and at the bottom. Is 8 on my, I use a sheet that has lines.
Yeah.
And then if you take now the size of a triangle, it is 3. The size of a triangle is 3. That is the yellow.
Yeah. Now just go one step further in terms of Leonardo's picture and what have you just done? You've
it's just
actually,
it is a man. It is what he had. Yes.
But you created it the opposite way that he created it.
Okay, but you know,
which is really interesting in the sense that he started with the triangle, and it seems to me that that's how he then configured the body and the stretched out legs. And he had this idea that if the way you stretched out your arms and legs, you pulled the head down 14 degrees.
Yes, yes.
And so that's I mean, you just replicated the geometric structure that people have said this is what Leonardo did, only I think he started, if you want, inductively with the triangle in mind, and then he worked his way around to that figure, and you started the other way in my mind.
Yeah.
And that's the other beauty of being able to start from different angles and come up with the same conclusion or the same answer or the same solution.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, beautiful.
Because the square root of 2 to the power of 3 divided by 2, which is actually the sine or the inverse sine of 60 degrees, is square root of 3 divided by 2. Or what? I mean, it has to do with square root of 3.
Wow.
No, square root of 2 and 3 number. Because the square root of 2 to the power of 3 is 3 times square root of 2. And you see that expression all over in mathematics when it has to do with 60 degrees. Square root of 2 translate the cube, the square. And square root of 3, and 3 is a triangle. Let me look, I mean, this is just poetry now. It's nothing scientific. It is that when you take 2 to the power of 3, that's what we know, right? Because it is concentric all around. 2 to the power of 3. So the 3 great circles in the area, the surface, 2. If 2 poles all over time, you take 1 to the power 1, 2, 3. 2 to the power of 3. And then you take the square root of 2 to the power of 3, the 3 comes out, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is...
Yes, the 3. What I mean here is
we're going beyond.
Yes. No, but we play Nana. Let me just show it. Equal 3 times square root of 2. Yeah. Those two expressions are exactly the same thing. Mathematically, it's exactly the same.
Cool enough.
Good. Thank you.
And two that is inside represent the linear. They just the awareness. Me aware of Steve. That's what I see as a relationship. The three outside is I've recognized not only Steve and me, but there is somebody else out there. So it's 3 relationships minimum.
Well, cool. Okay, I'm ready to call it an evening. Thank you all very much. Is everybody complete?
So you still have to sleep, Steve, right? We are up now. We are on
You're
fire.
up for the day.
It's the
I'm
morning
exhausted.
here. So Richard
Right.
and you, good night. And
Good
the
night.
3 of you, by the way, so I'm up.
Cool. Bye-bye.
Bye.